y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is going to be an episode of It Came From the Network. And on this episode, we're going to take a suggestion from one of our good friends, been a friend of mine for a long while now, Josh Adams. As you see the picture here, I told Josh that if he wore this shirt and sent me a picture, not only was I going to use it in my video, but I would do the video he suggested. So, for this It Came From the Network, we're going to do Smoky Mountain Wrestling, episode 112, from March 19th of 1994. I almost said 2004. This is with recommendation from Josh. Now, if you haven't seen It Came From the Network before, if this is your first time on these, first off, welcome. I'm glad you decided to click on my video. Secondly, what we do here is we review the weird, the bad, the wacky, the campy, and sometimes just downright regrettable stuff you can find on the WWE Network. Josh suggested I do an episode of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I chose this one because a historical event happens on this episode, so to me, and I'll talk about it when I get there, that's why I chose this one. Jumping right into it, diving head on. First match of the night, we have Bobby Blaze versus Larry Santo. This is a really good match. I don't know how many people are familiar with either of these guys. Larry Santo was more of a job guy. He was used on WCW Saturday Night a lot back in the day. Bobby Blaze was a guy who, in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, he was one of their stars. He was a guy that they built there. He never really got much outside of the Smoky Mountain area, but that's not to say he wasn't a really good wrestler. This is a good opening match, kind of short. Bobby Blaze picks up the win, as you would expect. I'm going to give this match a 2 out of 5, and as I forgot to mention, we rate everything here on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst and 5 being the best. Giving this match a 2 out of 5. It's your standard fare jobber match of the time frame, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't particularly good, it wasn't particularly bad. It really was, to me, when I watch these back now and see these type matches, they're more just filler to me. Next up, we have an interview with the Dirty White Boy and the Dirty White Girl. And if you're not familiar with the Dirty White Boy, he would go on to be T.L. Hopper in WWE. He was actually a really good regional star throughout the late 80s, early 90s. He was a fantastic wrestler. He cut a hell of a promo, and he did here in this interview where they're basically building up a match at the Bluegrass Brawl between him and the Dirty White Girl, who was his manager / wife or girlfriend, I forget what it was at the time, versus Tammy Fitch, who would go on to become Sonny, and Primetime Brian Lee. They were talking about this, and they put on an interview with these two, and it was a really good interview when the Dirty White Boy talked. The Dirty White Girl, not so much. But Dirty White Boy, great interview guy. He was a guy I really liked. I kind of felt bad for the T.L. Hopper era of him, but if you could take that away, and if you're not familiar with him, go check out some of the Dirty White Boy stuff. He's actually a really good wrestler and a really great promo guy. I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. I loved White Boy, didn't like so much the White Girl, which is kind of what brought it into the middle. Next up, we have a match between Killer Kyle and Mike Furness, and this was for basically their television championship. What was it called? I forget what it was called. But anyway, it was a challenge match where if you won, you became the champion, but you had to defend every week. Which I loved that concept. The concept of defending the title every single week was awesome to me. Killer Kyle comes into the match as champion. Mike Furness picks up a surprise win. And if it sounds familiar, it's because you've heard of his brother, Doug, who was tag team partners with Phil LaFon and the Can-Am Connection, which were a great tag team in All Japan Wrestling, did some stuff in ECW and WWF at the time. Mike is Doug's younger brother, and he was brought in specifically because he was a Tennessee football player. Smoky Mountain Wrestling ran in that area, so he was a star football player that they tried to make into a wrestler. I don't think he had a long run here, and I don't think he was long to be a wrestler at all. This match I actually enjoyed. I liked it's kind of the underdog beats the experienced guy story. The littler guy beats the big guy. Furnace picks up the win. I give it a 3 out of 5. I actually enjoyed this. I kind of wish I had more on Mike Furnace. I think in my time in watching him, I may have seen maybe, I want to say it's less than 5 matches of his, and that's including this one. So I kind of wanted to see, when I watched it, I wanted to see more. He had something. I don't know what the reasoning was why he never went on, whether it was injury or his heart just wasn't in it. But that being said, it was what it was. Next up, we get a recap / promo segment between the feud with the Heavenly Bodies and the Rock and Roll Express, who at the Bluegrass Brawl that we already talked about are going to have a loser leaves town match. This was good. This was awesome. Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette. What can I say? They were a great heel tag team. And the Rock and Roll Express, you can make video upon video about how great they were. Rock and Rolls versus any of I keep wanting to call him Jimmy Cornette. Jim Cornette's teams always were a good matchup because of what Jim could say about the Rock and Rolls and how the Rock and Rolls, and they did great promos too. Both teams had promos here. They had highlights of a previous match. I thought this was a fantastic segment. This was something that if I was in the Louisville area, I would have been looking forward to the Bluegrass Brawl just to see the loser leaves town match. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. I really think this is, when I think Smoky Mountain, I think of teams like the Heavenly Bodies. I think of people that kind of like the Dirty White Boy I mentioned earlier, like Tracy Smothers, who I'm going to mention later on in the show, who had all the talent in the world, and when given a segment or given a show like this, they were allowed to shine. But when they went on to bigger stages, for whatever reason, could not quite get the level of success you would expect. But when you see them here, you see a star. The Heavenly Bodies were stars. The Rock and Roll Express were stars. Jim Cornette, one of the great managers of all time. So that was a great segment, in my opinion. Next up, we have Down and Dirty with Dutch Mantel. Basically, your classic wrestler interview in the ring segment. His guests are going to be Tammy Sitch and Primetime Brian Lee. And they're talking about their mixed gender match with Dirty White Boy and Dirty White Girl, which is going to be basically a tuxedo match where they strip them down to their underwear. Tammy always has been ultra entertaining. This was before she went crazy on the plastic surgery, so we got more of the girl next door look of Tammy Sitch, Sunny, as opposed to she morphed into the porn star look. And that's not saying she's a beautiful woman in both iterations. I tend to lean more towards the, natural beauty than the processed beauty, but that's just my opinion. I liked it here. She was very young, and you could see she had all the charisma in the world. Brian Lee, who is a great wrestler, again, fits into what I was saying about the other guys, never quite gets the due he deserves, whether it be him being fake Undertaker or Chains, or later on in the Disciples of the New Church with TNA. He never really got that push that we seen he could have had here. And I thought this was a good pairing because Brian Lee was never a great interview guy, but Tammy Sitch always was. So that made it a great pairing for the two. During the interview, Dirty White Girl comes out to confront Tammy. Brian Lee grabs her, which of course brings out the Dirty White Boy. Dirty White Boy rips off Brian Lee's pants, again selling for what's coming up later, the Bluegrass Brawl and the tag match. I thought this was a really good segment. I really enjoyed it. I love most of the participants in here, so I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. I thought this was rather enjoyable, which leads us into our next match, and the reason I chose this video. The debut of the Thrill Seekers. Now, you may have heard that name before, you may have read it in a book, but if you haven't, the Thrill Seekers were Lance Storm and Chris Jericho. Two guys who would go on to an amazing amount of success in their wrestling careers. They wrestled against the Infernos, who... The Infernos are kind of like the Assassins, where there have been several different people that have been Infernos. This one, they were called Fire and Brimstone. Usually it would be 1 and 2, but it's basically your generic masked gimmick jobbers to give them something. There have been Inferno teams all the way back to the 50s, and I believe the original iteration of the Infernos is quite legendary in the South, actually. This one, not so much. This is probably the 30th or 40th set of pairs that have wrestled as the Infernos. Either way you look at this was a highlight match to show off what the Thrill Seekers could do. The Thrill Seekers, they looked great. They looked like a good tag team. They looked like the future of tag team wrestling. They looked like taking the Rock and Roll Express and updating it for the 1990s, and that was the Thrill Seekers. They pick up the win in this one, which we knew they would with their debut. I thought it was a really solid match, however. I thought it showcased them well. It was a good way to bring them into a new crowd. I'm going to give this match a 4 out of 5. I thought it was really good. It probably would have been a lot better if it was Thrill Seekers versus the Heavenly Bodies or something like that. But with it being a basic showcase match, it hindered it a bit, but not too much. Next up, we get to our main event of the night. Chris Candido versus Tracy Smothers in a ladder match for $2,500. That's right, folks. What they were wrestling for was $2,500. Which, in 2018 terms, doesn't sound like a tremendously large amount of money. I wouldn't poop at it. If you gave me a $2,500 check right now, I would gladly accept it and probably be one of the bigger checks that I've received in my life. It's not a crazy amount of money, though, in today's terms. Back then, it was a little bit more. It still wasn't insane, but it was believable. It was a believable amount of money. You could believe that two guys would want to fight over $2,500, if that makes sense. Basically, in those terms, a good paying job that would be 5 weeks of work. You made $500, you get what I'm saying. Or 10 weeks of work, actually. Because you'd make 5 paychecks to get to $2,500, making $500 per paycheck, basically. My math may be off for inflation, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. Now, $2,500, if it takes you 5 paychecks to get there, you're not going to live. You're not going to survive. At least not in America. I digress. I absolutely loved this match. I thought it was really good. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was fun. Tracy Smothers picked up the win. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's definitely, by far, the best match on the card. It was really enjoyable. I like Tracy Smothers a lot. I like Chris Candido a lot. Some little bits of cringe value there. There's a lot of Tracy Smothers comes out in a rebel flag jacket, and there's a lot of South will Rise Again undertones to it. A little bit cringy, but I don't really think it was meant to be racist, and I still don't kind of think. I just think they were playing to their audience, to be honest with you. So there's a little bit of But you could go back and watch WWE at the time and see the similar things on there. Big Boss Man famously had the flag of Georgia, which included the rebel flag on his shirt that he used to wear, his prison guard shirt. That's what I was getting at. But anywho, I digress. We're getting away from what I wanted to get at. A really good match for the main event. We go to the last segment of the show, and this was a staple of Jim Cornette produced shows where he would have multiple segments promoting the same thing and would end the show a lot of times, more often than not, you would either end on a cliffhanger where they ran out of time in the match, or you would end with a promo promoting an upcoming big main event. And this one was that. The Dirty White Boy and the Dirty White Girl came out, did another interview. It was really good again on Dirty White Boy's part. Dirty White Girl, not so much. I give that one another 3. Good way to end the show. I thought it was interesting. Like I said, seems to be a staple in Jim Cornette booking. He did that all through Smoky Mountain. And when he booked OVW, he did that as well. Not so much in Ring of Honor, but you could see elements of it in Ring of Honor when he booked there. But I liked the ending. I liked it showing off, and I liked the fact that at the time, Smoky Mountain was a local show that only went out to local audiences. So yeah, you want to use the show to promote them, to get them to the house shows or to the actual events. So it made a lot of sense to me why he did that. And I thought it was good. I thought it was a really good promo. Like I said, Dirty White Boy doesn't get quite the respect he deserves. A lot of it's because of the TL Hopper thing, but what are you going to do? Can't go back and change history. With all that being said, let's jump right into our ratings. Now, again, like I said, we judge everything here on a 1 to 5 scale. The overall ratings, however, we add a little bit of flair to them. A 1 is a Gobbledygooker, 2 is a Dungeon of Doom, 3 is a Hurricane Helms, 4 is a Gold Dust, and 5 is a Kane. I'm going to give this one a 4, a Gold Dust. I thought it was a really solid show. Taken outside of the vacuum and looking at it as just one show, it could encapsulate everything you would want to see. Taking it and putting in the concept of the weekly program, it's an even better show. So, out of the capsule, just a standalone, a really good show. As part of the overall story, a fantastic, great show. So I'm giving it a 4, a Gold Dust. I thought it was really fantastic. There was a lot I liked on here. The promos, I liked most of the promos that were on the show. The matches were good. Even the job matches were pretty good. The swerves or surprises, like Mike Furness picking up the win, was really good. I liked what they did here. This is what I'd want to see in an hour-long show. Now, with all the business end of this going on, again, we want to say thank you to our good friend Josh Adams for picking this. I really appreciate it, my friend. You've been a friend. You've been a supporter. You've been with this channel since the very beginning. And I really appreciate your support. I really do. That being said, it's time we give back to Josh. Earlier this week, Josh's mother was put on a defibrillator. Now, I don't want to go too far into this because that's their personal story. Josh shared a bit of it with me, and he shared some stuff on his social media. All that being said, if you're watching this video, I implore you, please, keep Josh's mother and Josh's family in your prayers. Keep her in your thoughts. Any well wishes, please send them out. And do me a huge favor, if you're watching this video, just put in the comments that we're thinking of you, Josh, down here. Let him know, let his mother know that we're thinking of them, that we care about them, that we love them, and we want her to get better, and we want her to be as healthy as possible. Josh, man, like I said, I really consider you a friend, and all our interaction over the years, you've been nothing but gracious. You've been nothing but a good friend to me. So I'm praying for your mother. I have been since you told me. I implore anybody that's watching this to also pray for her. Or if that's not your thing, just send out good vibes about her, and we're with you, my friend. I'll just praying for you, man. And another thing that Josh brought up, which I'm going to bring up here, he thinks we should have a name for the viewers. Now, I've always talked about you guys that watch my videos, because I don't have a huge following. I'm not What Culture. I'm not Wrestling with Regret. I'd love to be there. I'd love to be making the money they make doing the videos, but I don't. That being said, I love what I do, and I love the people that watch these videos. I've always considered you guys all my friends, because for the most part, it's the same people that are commenting, it's the same people that are sharing, it's the same people that are liking. And I've built relationships with a lot of you guys out there. So I've always just considered you friends. I didn't think about it like Jim Cornette has the Cult of Cornette, or Raven has his minions if you listen to his podcast. Or, even in sports, you got the dog pound for the Cleveland Browns, or the crazy people that are Oakland Raider fans, or people that support Manchester United. They all have names to them. Hawkamaniacs, something like that. I'm going to leave this up to you guys. Along with sending out well wishes and just saying that you're in our thoughts, please put that down in the comments. Also, tell me what you think we should call you. What should I call you, viewers? Josh's suggestion is you're the heels. Being that this is heel heat, makes a little bit of sense. If you think Josh is right, go ahead and put that. We're gonna look at it and maybe give it 2 weeks to see. And I'll put this question at the end of all the videos I do over the next couple weeks. But what do you think we should call you guys? What would you like to be called? What do you think would fit as being the viewers, fans, and friends of Heel Heat? Let me know. Hit us up in the comments. Make sure you like and share. Send out a prayer to Josh, his family, especially his mother. We love you, Josh. Thank you again for your suggestion. Thank you for all the years of friendship. All that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of It Came From the Network.